What would you do if saving a stranger's child meant risking everything you have left? Tonight, a broke waitress with a dying daughter finds $3,000 in cash, enough to save her baby's life. But the man who left it behind is Chicago's most feared crime lord, and he's just received the call every parent dreads. In 60 seconds, Lena Brooks will make a choice that changes two families forever. Will she take the money and run, or will she do something that even the most powerful man in the city never expected? Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this journey travels. The rain came down in sheets that Tuesday night, turning Michigan Avenue into a river of neon reflections and black asphalt. Inside Celestia, Chicago's most exclusive restaurant, the chandeliers cast golden light across white tablecloths and crystal glasses, creating an island of warmth against the storm outside. Lena Brooks moved between tables with practiced efficiency, her uniform pressed despite being 3 years old, her smile professional despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. She was 32 but felt 50. Single motherhood and poverty had a way of aging a person from the inside out. More water for table 7, she murmured to herself, refilling glasses with the kind of invisible grace that good waitresses mastered, present enough to be helpful, invisible enough not to intrude. The customers at table 7 barely glanced at her. They never did. Lena had learned long ago that to wealthy people, service workers were like furniture, useful, necessary, but not quite human. She didn't mind. Invisibility had its advantages. Lena, Marco, the floor manager, caught her elbow as she passed. His face was tight with the particular stress that came from managing a restaurant where a single meal cost more than most people's weekly paycheck. Table 12 needs attention. VIP. Very VIP. Whatever he wants, he gets it. Understood? Lena nodded, glancing toward table 12. The man sitting there didn't look like the usual clientele. He was younger, maybe late 30s, with dark hair and darker eyes, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her car. But it wasn't the expensive clothes that made her pause. It was the stillness around him. 3 other men sat at nearby tables, not eating, just watching. Security, she realized. Heavy security. Who is he? She asked quietly. Marco's face went pale. Someone you don't ask questions about. Just smile, be polite, and forget you ever saw him. Clear? Crystal clear. Lena had lived in Chicago long enough to recognize the architecture of power and fear. She approached table 12 with her most professional smile, notepad ready. Good evening, sir. Can I start you with something to drink? The man looked up, and Lena felt the full weight of his attention. His eyes were the color of coffee, sharp and assessing. But there was something else there, too, a bone-deep weariness that she recognized because she saw it in her own mirror every morning. Scotch, Macallan, 25, neat. His voice was smooth, educated, with just a trace of the old neighborhood underneath the polish. And I'm expecting a call. When it comes, I'll need privacy. Of course. Lena moved to leave, but something made her pause. Maybe it was the way his hand trembled slightly as he checked his phone. Maybe it was the haunted look in his eyes. Is everything all right, sir? It was a stupid question. You didn't ask powerful men if they were okay, but the words were out before she could stop them. He stared at her for a long moment, surprise flickering across his features. You always this observant? Occupational hazard. I notice things. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Then you're wasted here. The smile died. But no, everything is not all right. It won't be all right until I get a call I'm waiting for. Lena nodded and left to get his drink. She didn't know why she'd asked. Maybe because loneliness recognized loneliness, even across the vast gulf of their circumstances. She returned with the Macallan, setting it down with steady hands despite the tremor of exhaustion in her muscles. She'd been on her feet for 11 hours straight. Her daughter Emma's medical bills had piled up again, and the hospital was threatening to stop treatment if she didn't make a payment by Friday. She'd picked up every extra shift she could find, but it was never enough. It was never, ever enough. Lena. The man spoke her name, reading it off her badge. That's a good name. Strong. Thank you, sir. Marcus. He took a sip of scotch. Not sir. Just Marcus. She knew she should walk away. Every instinct screamed at her to maintain professional distance. But something in his voice, something raw and desperate underneath the control, made her stay. Is someone sick? The person you're waiting to hear from? Marcus's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he'd tell her to mind her business. Instead, he said quietly, "My son. He's 7. He was supposed to be at a supervised visit with his mother, but..." He trailed off, checking his phone again. "He's 2 hours late coming home." Lena's heart clenched. She knew that fear. She lived it every day with Emma. "I'm sure he's fine. Traffic, or maybe they lost track of time." His phone buzzed. Marcus grabbed it so fast his scotch nearly toppled. Lena watched the color drain from his face as he read whatever message had come through. His hand clenched around the phone so hard she heard the case crack. "Marcus?" He stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. The security men at nearby tables rose instantly, hands moving toward concealed weapons. The atmosphere in Celestia changed in a heartbeat, the pleasant dinner ambiance replaced by something darker, more dangerous. "I have to go." Marcus threw a black credit card on the table, his movements sharp and controlled despite whatever chaos was unfolding. "Charge whatever. I don't care." He was already moving toward the door, his security forming a protective wedge around him. Lena watched them go, her heart hammering. Something was very, very wrong. A father's worst nightmare was written all over Marcus's face, and she'd seen enough of life to know that look. She started clearing table 12, her hands moving on autopilot while her mind raced. That was when she saw it. Underneath the credit card, tucked beneath the receipt holder, was a stack of $100 bills. Lena's breath caught. She glanced around quickly. No cameras pointed at this section, no other staff nearby. With shaking hands, she counted the money. $3,000. Her knees nearly buckled. $3,000. That was Emma's medication for 2 months. That was the payment the hospital needed. That was the difference between her daughter living and dying. It had to be a mistake. Marcus had been distracted, panicked. He'd left it behind without thinking. The right thing to do was chase him down, return it. The money wasn't hers, but $3,000. Lena stood there frozen, the bills heavy in her hand. Outside, through the restaurant's tall windows, she could see Marcus's black SUV pulling into traffic, taillights disappearing into the rain. In 30 seconds, he'd be gone. In 60 seconds, she could pocket this money and no one would ever know. Emma's face flashed through her mind. Her beautiful 7-year-old daughter with her bright smile and her fragile heart, literally fragile, damaged by a congenital defect that required constant medication and would eventually need surgery they couldn't afford. Emma, who'd been so brave through every doctor's appointment, every painful procedure, who still believed her mother could fix anything. $3,000 could fix this. For a while, at least. Lena looked down at the money in her hands. Then she looked at her reflection in the darkened window. A tired woman in a cheap uniform, invisible to everyone who mattered, drowning in debt and desperation. This was her chance. Maybe her only chance. But Marcus's face when he'd read that message. The terror of a father who'd just learned his child was in danger. Whatever was happening to his son, it was bad. And a man that distracted, that panicked, would need every resource he had. Lena made her decision in the space between heartbeats. She grabbed her coat from the staff room, ignoring Marco's startled protest, and ran out into the rain. The SUV was already 3 blocks away, but she knew Chicago's streets. She'd grown up here, knew every shortcut and side street. If she was fast, if she was lucky, maybe she could catch him. The rain soaked through her uniform in seconds. Her shoes, cheap flats with worn soles, slipped on the wet pavement. But Lena ran anyway, clutching that $3,000 like a lifeline, even as she chased down the man she was going to give it back to. She cut through an alley, emerged on State Street, spotted the black SUV stopped at a red light. Lena pounded on the window, gasping for breath. The window lowered. One of the security men stared at her, his hand inside his jacket. "Back away from the vehicle." "I need to see Marcus. Please. I have his money. He left money at the restaurant. He doesn't need it. Go." "Please." Lena held up the wet bills. He was upset. He forgot this, and I think he might need it for whatever's happening with his son. The rear window lowered. Marcus stared at her through the rain, surprise and something else, suspicion, maybe, crossing his face. "You ran after me to return $3,000? "It's not mine," Lena said simply. and you might need it. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then, get in. What? Get in the car! Now! The security man opened the door. Lena hesitated. Every logical part of her brain screamed that getting into a car with a strange man and his armed guards was insane. But something in Marcus's eyes, something desperate and human, made her climb inside. The door shut. The SUV pulled away from the curb, picking up speed as they headed south, away from the gleaming towers of downtown toward neighborhoods where streetlights were broken and hope was scarce. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, Marcus said. He'd pulled out his phone, was typing furiously. I haven't decided which. Neither, Lena said, still catching her breath. I'm just a mother who understands what you're going through. Marcus looked up sharply. You have a child? A daughter, Emma. She's 7, like your son. Something shifted in his expression. He handed her a towel from a compartment in the door. The car was equipped like a mobile office, Lena realized, with everything from towels to what looked like a laptop built into the center console. She dried her face, tried to stop shivering. What's your daughter's condition? Marcus asked. Lena blinked. How did you... You said you understand what I'm going through, and you look like you haven't slept in a month. I'm guessing medical bills. Congenital heart defect. The words came out flat, worn smooth by repetition. She needs medication to keep stable until she's old enough for surgery, but the medication costs more than I make, and insurance won't cover it all, and... She stopped. Sorry, you don't need to hear this. Keep talking, Marcus said. He was still typing on his phone, but she had his attention. It helps to focus on something besides where we're going. Where are we going? His jaw tightened. To get my son back. The simple statement carried the weight of violence. Lena understood then, with sudden clarity, exactly who Marcus was. Not just wealthy, not just powerful. He was one of the men her mother had warned her about when she was young, the ones who controlled the city's shadows, who made problems disappear, who operated by rules that had nothing to do with law. Who has him? She asked quietly. Marcus finally looked up from his phone. People who want to hurt me. People who think taking a 7-year-old boy is an acceptable business tactic. His voice was ice over fury. They're about to learn differently. The SUV turned into a neighborhood Lena recognized, the old warehouse district near the river, where abandoned factories crumbled beside the water and streetlights were more decorative than functional. This was territory where police cars drove fast and didn't stop, where emergency calls went unanswered, where the city's official power ended and something older and darker took over. You should let me out, Lena said. I don't belong here. Neither does my son. Marcus leaned forward, spoke to the driver. 2 blocks. Kill the lights. The SUV went dark, navigating by ambient city glow. They pulled up beside a massive brick building with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. But Lena noticed what others might miss. The subtle signs of occupancy. Fresh tire tracks in the mud. A door that looked decrepit but had new hinges. A single window on the 3rd floor with light bleeding through painted-over glass. Security men emerged from 2 other vehicles, moving with military precision. They were armed, Lena saw. Heavily armed. Stay in the car, Marcus ordered. He accepted a gun from one of his men, checked it with practiced efficiency. Lock the doors. If shooting starts, get down and stay down. Marcus, he looked at her then, really looked at her. You came all this way to return money that could save your daughter's life. Why? Lena met his eyes. Because it was the right thing to do. There's no such thing as right and wrong in my world. Only leverage and consequences. Then maybe you're in the wrong world. A ghost of a smile. Maybe I am. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a business card. If something happens to me, call that number. Tell them I said to help you. Your daughter's medical bills, they'll be handled. I don't want... I know, but take it anyway. Marcus stepped out of the SUV. Consider it payment for reminding me that decent people still exist. The door closed. Lena watched through rain-streaked windows as Marcus and his team approached the warehouse. They moved like shadows, splitting into groups, surrounding the building. She should look away, should close her eyes and wait for this nightmare to end. But she was a mother, and somewhere in that building was another mother's child. Minutes passed like hours. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. She clutched the business card Marcus had given her, her daughter's future suddenly tied to a stranger's survival. Then she heard it. Not gunfire. Something worse. A child's scream. Lena's body moved before her brain caught up. She was out of the SUV, running toward the warehouse, ignoring the shouts of the driver behind her. That scream had unlocked something primal in her, every protective instinct, every maternal fear, every desperate need to stop a child from suffering. She found a side door hanging crooked on its hinges. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of rusted machinery and collapsed catwalks. Voices echoed from somewhere above. Angry men, scared men, and underneath it all, a child crying. Lena climbed crumbling stairs, her wet shoes slipping on metal grating. She could hear Marcus now, his voice carrying through the cavernous space. Let him go. Whatever problem you have, it's with me. The boy has nothing to do with this. That's where you're wrong, DeLuca. A different voice, harsh and triumphant. The boy has everything to do with this. You took something from us. Now we take something from you. Lena reached the third floor and froze. The space had been cleared into a makeshift arena. Marcus stood in the center, surrounded by at least a dozen armed men. His security team was positioned at various points around the room, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. And there, held by a massive man with a scarred face, was a small boy with dark hair and terrified eyes. Marcus's son. The boy was crying, struggling against the hands that held him. The scarred man had a gun pressed against the child's head. You have 30 seconds to decide, DeLuca, Scarface said. Your empire or your son. Walk away from everything you've built, sign over all your territories, all your holdings, or I put a bullet in his brain. Marcus had gone very still. Lena recognized that stillness. It was the same frozen shock she'd felt when the doctor first told her about Emma's condition, when the world tilted and nothing made sense anymore. You know I can't do that, Marcus said. His voice was steady, but Lena could hear the hairline fractures in it. If I give you everything, you'll kill us both anyway. Maybe. Maybe not. But if you don't, I'd definitely kill him. 20 seconds. Lena saw Marcus's hand twitch toward his gun, saw the dozen fingers tighten on triggers around the room. If he drew, everyone would die, including the boy. Marcus seemed to realize this too. Slowly, carefully, he raised his hands. All right, he said. All right, you win. And then impossibly, Marcus DeLuca, the feared crime lord, the man who controlled half of Chicago's underworld, dropped to his knees. Please, he said, and the word cracked like broken glass. Please don't hurt my son. I'll give you anything, everything. Just let him go. The scarred man laughed. Look at the mighty Marcus DeLuca, begging like a dog. He pressed the gun harder against the boy's temple. The child whimpered. 10 seconds. Lena watched a father destroy himself to save his child. Watched him offer up his entire world, his power, his pride, everything that made him who he was, for the slim chance that his son might live. She understood that choice, would make the same one for Emma without hesitation. But she also saw what Marcus couldn't from his position on the floor. She saw the scarred man's finger beginning to tighten on the trigger, saw the smirk on his face that said he'd never intended to let anyone walk out of here alive. This wasn't a negotiation. It was an execution. And she saw something else, something everyone had missed, a piece of rusted catwalk hanging above Scarface's head, held up by a single weakened bolt. Lena had maybe 3 seconds to make a choice. Stay invisible, stay safe, let this play out however it was going to play out. Or do something stupid, reckless, and possibly suicidal. She thought of Emma, thought of Marcus's son, thought of every time in her life she'd played it safe, stayed small, let fear make her decisions. Not today. Lena grabbed a piece of pipe from the debris beside her and swung it as hard as she could at the bolt. Metal screamed. The catwalk section broke free, 20 feet of rusted steel crashing down directly onto Scarface. He went down hard, his gun firing wild, the bullet sparking off machinery. The boy fell free, hitting the ground and scrambling away. Chaos erupted. Gunfire exploded through the warehouse. Marcus was moving before the catwalk finished falling, his weapon out, firing with surgical precision. His security team opened up from their positions. The rival gang scattered, some shooting back, others diving for cover. Lena couldn't see the boy anymore. Couldn't see anything through the smoke and muzzle flash. She dropped to the floor, covered her head, and prayed to a God she barely believed in anymore. The shooting lasted maybe 15 seconds. It felt like 15 years. When silence finally fell, Lena's ears were ringing. Smoke hung in the air, acrid and choking. Slowly, she lifted her head. Bodies. At least 8 men down, not moving. Marcus's security team was moving through the space, checking corners, securing weapons. And there, in the center of it all, Marcus was on his knees again. But this time he was holding his son, clutching the boy so tight it must have hurt. The child was crying. So was Marcus. "Dad!" the boy sobbed. "Dad, I was so scared." I know, baby. I'm so sorry. I'm here now. I've got you." Lena started to stand, her legs shaking. That was when she saw him. Scarface wasn't dead. He was pinned under the catwalk, blood streaming from a head wound, but he was conscious. And his gun was in his hand, rising slowly, aimed directly at Marcus's unprotected back. There was no time to shout, no time to warn. Lena's body moved on instinct, propelling her forward. She threw herself between the gun and Marcus just as Scarface pulled the trigger. The impact felt like being hit by a car. Lena spun, fell, her shoulder erupting in white-hot pain. She hit the ground hard, her vision blurring. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was Marcus's voice, raw with shock, and something that might have been fear. "Jesus Christ, she's been shot." Then nothing was. Lena woke to white ceiling tiles and the steady beep of medical equipment. For a confused moment, she thought she was at Emma's hospital, that she'd fallen asleep in the uncomfortable chair beside her daughter's bed again. Then the pain hit. Her left shoulder felt like it was on fire. "Easy." A hand touched her uninjured arm gently. "Don't try to move yet." Lena turned her head slowly. Marcus sat beside the hospital bed, still wearing his blood-stained shirt, looking like he'd aged 10 years since she'd last seen him conscious. "Your son," she managed. Her throat was desert dry. "Safe. He's with my mother. Not a scratch on him, thanks to you." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes intense. "The bullet went through your shoulder, clean through, missed the bone. The doctors say you'll make a full recovery." "That's good." Lena tried to sit up, gasped as pain shot through her shoulder. "I said don't move." Marcus stood, adjusted her pillows so she could recline more comfortably. "You took a bullet for me and my son. Why?" "I didn't really think about it. That's what I figured." He sat back down, studying her face like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Lena Brooks. Single mother, works 3 jobs to pay medical bills. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. Everyone I talk to says the same thing. You're quiet, responsible, you keep your head down and stay invisible. "You investigated me?" "I investigate everyone. It's how I stay alive." Marcus pulled something from his jacket, the $3,000, now in a crisp envelope. "You forgot this in the car." Lena stared at the money. "That's yours. And I'm giving it to you. Consider it a tip for excellent service and for saving my life." "I can't." "Yes, you can." Marcus set the envelope on the bedside table. "But that's not why I'm here. I need to know something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Can you do that?" Lena nodded slowly. "Tonight, in that warehouse, you saw something no civilian should ever see. You witnessed murders. You can identify faces, describe what happened, testify in court if anyone ever asks." He paused. "That makes you either a witness or a liability. I need to know which one you're planning to be." Lena understood what he was really asking. She'd seen enough mob movies to know how this worked. Witnesses disappeared. Liabilities got handled. But when she looked at Marcus, she didn't see a monster. She saw a father who'd been willing to give up everything for his child. She saw someone who'd carried her out of that warehouse and made sure she got the best medical care. She saw someone as tired as she was. "I'm planning to be someone who minds her own business," Lena said quietly. "I didn't see anything tonight except a father saving his son. Everything else..." She shrugged, winced at the pain. "I guess I was in shock. Don't remember much." Marcus stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger, almost kind. "You're a terrible liar, Lena Brooks, but I appreciate the effort." He stood, buttoned his jacket. Your medical bills, all of them, including tonight's hospital stay, have been handled. Emma's medication will be covered going forward. When she's ready for surgery, I have a doctor who specializes in pediatric cardiology. He owes me a favor. I can't accept. Yes, you can, and you will. His voice was gentle but firm. You gave me back my son. This is the least I can do. Tears burned Lena's eyes. Why? You don't know me. I'm nobody. You're wrong. Marcus moved toward the door, paused with his hand on the handle. You're the woman who chased a stranger through the rain to return money that could have saved her daughter's life. You're the woman who threw herself in front of a bullet to protect a child you'd never met. That's not nobody, Lena. That's someone rare. He opened the door, started to leave. Marcus? He turned back. Your son, Lena said. What's his name? A real smile this time. Daniel. His name is Daniel. Tell Daniel I'm glad he's safe. I will. Marcus hesitated, then said, The job at Celestia doesn't pay enough, doesn't appreciate you. If you ever want to make a change, call that number I gave you. I could use someone with your particular talents. I'm a waitress. I don't have talents. You notice things other people miss. You make decisions under pressure. You're brave when it matters. He shrugged. Those are exactly the talents I need. Think about it. Then he was gone, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts, her pain, and an envelope full of money that represented more than just cash. It represented a choice, the same choice she'd faced in the restaurant, magnified and multiplied. She could take Marcus's offer, step into his world, use her strange gift for observation to help him navigate the dangerous waters he swam in. Provide for Emma, ensure her daughter had everything she needed. Or she could go back to Celestia, back to invisibility, back to struggling day by day while the bills piled higher. Lena closed her eyes, exhausted. Tomorrow she'd make that decision. Tonight she just needed to rest. But she knew deep in her bones that her life had changed. The moment she'd chosen to chase Marcus into the rain, the moment she'd returned money she desperately needed, the moment she'd thrown herself in front of a bullet, those moments had drawn a line between who she'd been and who she was becoming. She just didn't know yet what that new person looked like. Outside her window, Chicago glittered in the night, full of shadows and secrets, danger and possibility. Somewhere in that city, a 7-year-old boy named Daniel was sleeping safe in his bed, protected by a father who'd been willing to burn his empire to save him. And somewhere in that same city, another 7-year-old girl named Emma would wake up tomorrow to a future that suddenly held more hope than it had in years. All because a waitress made a choice to do the right thing when no one was watching. Lena drifted toward sleep, the pain medication pulling her under. Her last conscious thought was simple, crystalline, true. She'd do it all again, every single second of it. The hospital discharged Lena 3 days later with a sling, a bottle of painkillers, and instructions to take it easy for at least 2 weeks. She laughed at that last part, a bitter sound that echoed in the empty hospital corridor. Take it easy. As if poverty came with vacation days. Emma was waiting in the lobby, her small hand tucked into the wrinkled palm of Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor who'd been watching her. The moment Emma saw her mother, she burst into tears and ran forward, wrapping thin arms around Lena's waist. Careful, baby, Lena whispered, stroking her daughter's hair with her good hand. Mama's a little sore. They said you got hurt at work. Emma's voice was muffled against Lena's stomach. They said you fell. I did. I'm clumsy sometimes. The lie tasted like ash. But Emma was 7. She didn't need to know about warehouses and gunfire and the thin line between life and death. But I'm okay now, I promise. Mrs. Chen approached, her dark eyes sharp with questions she was too polite to ask. The hospital bill, she said in her accented English. They say it's paid, all of it. And Emma's prescriptions. The pharmacy called. They say everything is covered now. How? Lena met her gaze steadily. I got a bonus. From work. Must be some bonus. Mrs. Chen didn't believe her. That much was clear. But she'd lived long enough to know when not to push. You need rest. I make soup. Bring it over later. Thank you. For everything. The old woman nodded and shuffled away, leaving Lena alone with her daughter and the weight of choices she'd made. They took the bus home, Emma chattering about school and her friends and an art project she was working on. Normal things. Beautiful, ordinary, precious things. Their apartment was on the third floor of a building that had seen better decades. The heat worked sporadically, the water pressure was a joke, and the neighbors upstairs fought at 2 in the morning like clockwork. But it was home. It was safe. It was theirs. Lena settled Emma in front of the television with her homework and went to the kitchen to figure out dinner. That was when she saw the envelope on the counter. Thick, cream-colored, expensive. Her name written across the front in elegant script. Her heart started pounding. She knew that envelope, had last seen it on her hospital bedside table. Inside was the $3,000, and beneath it, a note written in the same elegant hand. You forgot this. Again. Also check your bank account. Consider it compensation for pain and suffering. The offer still stands if you want something more permanent. M. Lena's hands shook as she pulled out her phone and logged into her banking app. She had to read the balance 3 times before it registered. $50,000. She sat down hard on one of their mismatched kitchen chairs, staring at the number. $50,000. More money than she'd seen in her entire life. Enough to cover Emma's medication for a year, enough to pay off their debts, enough to breathe. Mama? Emma appeared in the doorway. Are you crying? Lena touched her face, surprised to find tears. Happy tears, baby. Just happy tears. That night, after Emma fell asleep, Lena stood at her bedroom window looking out over Chicago's glittering skyline. Somewhere out there, Marcus DeLuca was living his life, making deals, running his empire, being a father to Daniel. He'd paid her off, cleared her debts, given her breathing room. The question was, what did he expect in return? The answer came 2 weeks later. Lena had returned to work at Celestia, her arm still in a sling but functional enough for light duty. Marco had been surprisingly understanding about her absence, though she suspected a phone call from someone important had smoothed that over. She was working the lunch shift when one of Marcus's security men walked in. She recognized him from the warehouse, tall, built like a linebacker, with a scar running through his left eyebrow. He sat at table 12, the same table Marcus had occupied that fateful night. Lena approached with water and menus, her pulse quickening. Good afternoon. Can I start you with something to drink? Coffee? Black? His voice was a rumble. And Mr. DeLuca would like to speak with you. Tonight, 7 o'clock. He slid a card across the table. An address in Lincoln Park, one of Chicago's wealthiest neighborhoods. He'll send a car. I can't. I have my daughter. Taken care of. Mrs. Chen has agreed to watch her. You'll be home by 9. The man's expression softened slightly. It's not a request, but it's not a threat either. He just wants to talk. After he left, Lena stared at the address. She could refuse, could throw the card away, ignore the summons, go back to her invisible life. But $50,000 had bought Marcus the right to a conversation at minimum. And if she was being honest with herself, she was curious. The car arrived at 6:30. A town car this time, not the armored SUV. The driver was polite and silent, navigating through evening traffic with professional efficiency. They pulled up to a brownstone that probably cost more than Lena would earn in 10 lifetimes. Ivy climbed the brick facade, and warm light glowed from tall windows. Marcus answered the door himself, wearing jeans and a sweater that made him look younger, more approachable. Lena, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? A ghost of a smile. There's always a choice. Come in. The interior was elegant but surprisingly warm. Lived-in furniture, children's drawings on the refrigerator, a forgotten action figure on the coffee table. This wasn't a showplace. This was a home. Daniel's asleep upstairs, Marcus said, following her gaze to a framed crayon drawing of what might have been a dinosaur. He wanted to stay up to thank you, but bedtime is non-negotiable in this house. You're a single father? His mother and I divorced 3 years ago. She has visitation rights, supervised only after... He trailed off. That's a long story. Can I get you something? Coffee? Wine? Water's fine. They settled in his study, a book-lined room that smelled of leather and old paper. Marcus poured her water from a crystal decanter, then sat across from her in a wingback chair that had clearly been sat in 1,000 times before. I want to offer you a job, he said without preamble. But before I do, I need you to understand exactly what I'm asking. Can you handle that? Lena nodded, though her heart was racing. My business is complicated. Officially, I run import-export companies, real estate holdings, investment portfolios. All legal, all taxed, all above board. He paused. Unofficially, I inherited an organization from my father, one that operates in the spaces between legal and illegal. Protection, gambling, certain distribution channels. I've spent the last 5 years trying to transition everything legitimate, but it's slow work, and there are people who resist that change. Like the men who took Daniel. Exactly. They see my moves toward legitimacy as weakness, as betrayal of the old ways. Marcus leaned forward. I need people I can trust, people who see what others miss. You demonstrated that skill in the warehouse. You noticed that loose catwalk when no one else did. You noticed I was upset when other people would have seen just another customer. That's rare. You want me to spy for you? I want you to observe. To be my eyes in places I can't go. Social events, business meetings, charity functions. You'd blend in, notice things, report back. Nothing dangerous, nothing illegal. Lena laughed, a sharp sound. You're asking a waitress to infiltrate high society. I'm asking a woman who's invisible to wealthy people to use that invisibility strategically. Marcus pulled a folder from his desk, opened it. I can provide training, etiquette, conversation skills, how to read people in situations. I can provide wardrobe, transportation, a salary that's 50% more than you're making now, with better hours so you can be home with Emma at night. The offer was impossibly tempting. Lena thought of her daughter, of the constant fear that the medication would stop working, that insurance would deny coverage, that one mistake would send their fragile stability crashing down. Why me? She asked. You must know dozens of people better qualified. I know criminals and socialites. I don't know good people. Marcus's voice was quiet. You returned $3,000 you desperately needed because it was the right thing to do. You threw yourself in front of a bullet to protect a child you'd never met. That kind of moral compass is something I can trust. Everything else can be taught. And if I say no? Then you say no. The money I gave you is yours regardless. No strings, no obligations. He met her eyes. But I hope you'll say yes. Not just because I need you, but because I think you need this too. You're drowning in that restaurant, Lena. Let me throw you a rope. She sat silent for a long moment, weighing options, calculating risks. This was insane. She had no training, no experience in Marcus's world. She'd be in over her head from day one. But Emma needed stability, needed security, needed a mother who wasn't constantly exhausted and terrified. If I do this, Lena said slowly, I have conditions. Emma comes first, always. If there's ever a situation where this job puts her at risk, I walk, no arguments. Agreed. And I don't do anything illegal. I don't lie under oath. I don't help you hurt people. I don't become complicit in anything that violates my conscience. Marcus considered this. I can agree to that with one caveat. There may be times when you witness things that exist in moral gray areas. I need to know you won't panic and run to the police every time something makes you uncomfortable. I'm not going to be your accomplice to murder. I'm not asking you to be. But if you overhear a conversation about gambling debts or see someone accepting cash in an envelope, I need you to understand that's part of the world we're operating in. Can you handle that level of moral complexity? Lena thought about the warehouse, about watching Marcus drop to his knees to beg for his son's life, about the men who'd been willing to murder a 7-year-old to make a point. The world wasn't black and white. She'd learned that the hard way. I can handle it, she said. When do I start? Marcus smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. Monday. But first, there's someone I want you to meet. He stood and led her upstairs, moving quietly through the house. They stopped at a doorway decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars. Marcus eased it open. Daniel was asleep in a race car bed, his dark hair messy against the pillow, one arm wrapped around a stuffed dragon. He looked so small, so vulnerable, so perfectly, wonderfully alive. Thank you, Marcus whispered, for giving him back to me. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. Any parent would have done the same. No, they wouldn't have. Most people would have taken the money and run. You're different. They went back downstairs. Marcus walked her to the door, handed her another envelope. Your first month's salary. Use it to get whatever you and Emma need. Monday, a car will pick you up at 9. Dress professionally, but comfortably. And Lena? Yes? Welcome to the family. The words should have been ominous. Instead, they felt like belonging. The car ride home gave Lena time to process what she'd agreed to. She'd just stepped off a cliff, trusting that Marcus DeLuca would teach her to fly before she hit the ground. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was necessary. Mrs. Chen was dozing on the couch when Lena arrived home. Emma was asleep in her bed, her breathing steady and strong thanks to medication that was now guaranteed. Lena paid Mrs. Chen double her usual rate from the envelope Marcus had given her, then checked the amount inside. $5,000. A month's salary. She'd been making $1,800 a month at Celestia, working herself into exhaustion. This was nearly triple that for work she didn't yet understand. The math should have made her suspicious. Instead, it made her determined to earn every penny. Monday arrived faster than Lena expected. She spent Sunday shopping for clothes that looked professional without screaming, "I bought these yesterday." Simple dresses, tailored pants, conservative blouses. Nothing flashy, nothing that would make her stand out. The goal was to blend in, be forgettable, invisible. The skills she'd honed as a waitress weaponized. The car picked her up at exactly 9. This time the driver introduced himself. Vincent, mid-50s, with kind eyes and an accent that spoke of old neighborhood Chicago. "Mr. DeLuca's had me driving for 15 years, he said as they navigated morning traffic. "You need anything? You ask me. That's what I'm here for." "Thank you, Vincent." "And hey, what you did for Daniel, that took guts. The whole crew knows what went down. You got respect." Lena didn't know what to say to that. She'd never had respect from anyone except maybe Emma's teachers. The weight of it was strange, uncomfortable, oddly precious. They pulled up to an office building in the Loop, modern glass and steel, the kind of place that housed law firms and investment banks. Vincent led her to a private elevator that required a key card, then up to the 20th floor. The space was open and elegant, more like a high-end apartment than an office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, modern art on the walls, and everywhere people working at computers, talking on phones, moving with purpose. Marcus emerged from a conference room, now back in his uniform of expensive suits and controlled power. "Lena, good. Come meet the team." Over the next hour, she was introduced to a dozen people: accountants, lawyers, IT specialists, security personnel. All of them legitimate employees of DeLuca Enterprises. All of them aware, she suspected, of the shadow business underneath. "Your official title is special consultant," Marcus explained, leading her to an office that was smaller than his but still nicer than anywhere Lena had worked. "Your job is to attend events, observe, report. We'll start slow. A charity gala this weekend, a business dinner next week. You'll go as my guest, watch how people interact, tell me what you notice. That's it? For now. Later, once you're comfortable, I might ask you to engage targets directly. Strike up conversations, ask strategic questions, but we'll work up to that." A woman appeared in the doorway, tall, elegant, probably in her early 60s with silver hair and sharp green eyes. "Marcus, is this her?" "Lena Brooks, meet Catherine Winters. She's going to be your instructor." Catherine looked Lena up and down with a gaze that missed nothing. Raw material. We can work with this." She extended a hand. "I'll be teaching you etiquette, conversation skills, how to read a room. Think of me as your finishing school professor, except instead of preparing you for society, I'm preparing you to infiltrate it." "I don't?" "Of course you don't. That's why I'm here." Catherine's smile was sharp. "But Marcus says you're observant and brave. That's more than I can say for most of the vapid socialites I used to train. Come. We have work to do." The next 4 days were a crash course in a world Lena had never imagined entering. Catherine taught her which fork to use when, how to make small talk without revealing anything meaningful, how to ask questions that seemed innocent but extracted information. They practiced walking in heels, holding wine glasses properly, discussing art and literature and politics without actually saying anything controversial. "The key," Catherine explained during a session on reading body language, "is to be utterly forgettable. while being absolutely observant. People will talk freely around you because they won't register you as a threat. But you'll be cataloging everything: who stands too close to whose wife, who drinks too much, who checks their phone obsessively, who can't meet someone else's eyes. You're teaching me to be a spy. I'm teaching you to see what's already there. The rest is up to you. Friday night, Catherine declared her ready, or as ready as she'd ever be. Marcus had arranged for a stylist to come to Lena's apartment, which sent Emma into fits of excitement. "Mama, you look like a princess," Emma breathed as Lena emerged from the bedroom in a floor-length navy gown that probably cost more than 3 months' rent. Lena barely recognized herself in the mirror. The dress was simple but elegant. Her hair swept up in a style that looked effortless but had taken the stylist 40 minutes to achieve. Subtle makeup that enhanced without transforming. Diamond earrings that were almost certainly real. She looked like someone who belonged in Marcus's world. The gala was at the Art Institute, a fundraiser for pediatric cancer research. Appropriate, given Marcus's story about Daniel. The ballroom was filled with Chicago's elite, politicians, business moguls, old money families whose ancestors had built the city. Marcus appeared at her side looking devastatingly handsome in a tuxedo. "Breathe," he murmured. "You belong here as much as anyone." "I'm a waitress in a borrowed dress. You're my consultant. Act like it." They entered together, and Lena felt 100 eyes track their movement. She recognized the calculation in those gazes. Who was this woman with Marcus DeLuca? What was her angle? Did she matter? "Smile," Marcus whispered. "Look bored. Rich people always look slightly bored." Lena arranged her face into an expression of pleasant disinterest and let Marcus guide her through the crowd. He introduced her as a business associate, nothing more specific, and most people didn't press. They were too busy trying to impress Marcus or assess whether he could be useful to them. And Lena watched. She noticed the state senator who laughed too loudly at Marcus's jokes, desperation in his eyes. Noticed the businessman whose wife stood 3 feet away from him all night, her smile bright and her eyes dead. Noticed the young lawyer who kept checking his phone, his face growing paler with each message. She noticed everything and said nothing. During dinner, she sat beside a woman in her 70s who wore enough diamonds to finance a small country. The woman barely acknowledged Lena's existence, which was perfect. It allowed Lena to listen to conversations around them, to catch fragments that might be meaningful. "The investigation is getting too close. Move the money offshore before they freeze the accounts. If he talks, we're all going down." Pieces of a puzzle she didn't yet understand. After dinner, Marcus found her on the balcony overlooking Michigan Avenue. "How are you holding up?" "It's overwhelming. All these people, all this wealth, and half of them seem miserable. Money doesn't buy happiness, just better quality problems." He leaned against the railing beside her. "See anything interesting?" Lena repeated the conversation she'd overheard, described the interactions she'd observed. Marcus listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "The senator's being blackmailed," he finally said. "The businessman's wife is having an affair with his partner, and the young lawyer just found out his boss is under federal investigation." He looked at her with something like awe. "You picked up on all of that in 3 hours?" "I'm good at being invisible." "No, you're good at seeing what others miss. There's a difference." They stayed at the gala until midnight. Then Vincent drove them back to Lincoln Park. Marcus invited her in for coffee, and Lena accepted, too wired to go home yet. Daniel was asleep again, but this time Marcus showed her photos, birthday parties, school events, ordinary moments of fatherhood. "His mother has problems," Marcus said quietly. "Addiction, mostly. She loves him, but she can't stay clean long enough to be safe. The supervised visits are necessary." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Daniel's healthy, happy, safe. That's all that matters." Marcus set down his coffee cup. "You did well tonight. Better than I expected for a first outing. What happens now?" "Now we use what you learned. The senator's blackmail makes him vulnerable and potentially useful. The businessman's marital problems create an opening in his company that I might exploit. The lawyer's panic means someone's talking to the feds, which I need to know about." He met her eyes. "This is the work, Lena. Gathering information, finding leverage, protecting my interests. And none of that bothers you?" "It used to. When I first took over from my father, I thought I could do things differently, be cleaner, kinder, more ethical. Marcus's smile was bitter. But this world doesn't reward kindness. It rewards strength and information and the willingness to use both. Then why are you trying to go legitimate? The question hung between them. Finally, Marcus said, because I want Daniel to inherit a business he can be proud of. Because I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. Because I think maybe, despite everything, I can be better than my father was. He paused. Because a woman once chased me through the rain to return money she desperately needed. And it reminded me that good people exist. And if they exist, maybe I can become one. Lena's throat tightened. I'm not that good. Yes, you are. You just don't see it yet. Vincent drove her home through empty streets, and Lena leaned her head against the cool glass, watching Chicago pass by. She'd crossed a line tonight, stepped fully into Marcus's world of shadows and secrets and carefully calculated moves. But she'd also earned $5,000, had health insurance for Emma, had a future that looked nothing like the desperate struggle of the past 7 years. The question was whether she could live with the price. Mrs. Chen was asleep on the couch again. Lena paid her, checked on Emma, sleeping peacefully, her breathing steady, then stood in her tiny kitchen counting the cost of her choices. She thought about the warehouse, about throwing herself in front of a bullet for a child she didn't know, about Marcus on his knees begging for his son's life. Maybe the world wasn't divided into good people and bad people. Maybe there were just people doing the best they could with impossible choices, trying to protect what they loved in a world that didn't make it easy. Lena Brooks had made her choice. Now she had to see where it led. The answer came sooner than Lena expected. 3 weeks into her new role, she'd settled into a rhythm that felt surreal. Morning strategy sessions with Marcus, afternoons learning the intricacies of his business empire, evenings at home with Emma. The money was real, the work was challenging, and for the first time in years, Lena could breathe without the constant weight of financial terror crushing her chest. Then everything changed on a Tuesday afternoon. She was in Marcus's office reviewing profiles of attendees for an upcoming charity auction when his phone rang. She watched his face transform as he listened, watched color drain from his skin, watched his hand grip the phone so tight his knuckles went white. When? His voice was deadly calm. How long do we have? A pause, then, get everyone to the safe house. Now, I'll be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call and stood, his movements controlled but urgent. Lena, I need you to go home, right now. Pack a bag for you and Emma, enough for 3 days. Vincent will pick you up in 15 minutes. What's happening? There's a problem, a big one. Marcus was already moving, pulling files from his desk, opening a safe hidden behind a painting. I can't explain right now, but I need you somewhere secure until this is resolved. Fear spiked through Lena's chest. Marcus, please. He looked at her, and she saw genuine worry in his eyes. Trust me, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't critical. Lena ran. Vincent was waiting downstairs, the car already running. They made it to her apartment in record time, and she threw clothes into a duffel bag with shaking hands. Emma was at school, wouldn't be home for another 2 hours. Lena called Mrs. Chen, asked her to pick up Emma and keep her until Vincent arrived. What's wrong? The old woman asked, concern sharp in her voice. Nothing. Everything. I don't know yet. Lena zipped the bag. Just please, keep her safe until Vincent comes. Always. Vincent drove her to a house in Evanston, a quiet suburb north of the city. The property was surrounded by high walls and security cameras. Inside, she found Catherine, several of Marcus's security team, and 3 other people she'd met briefly at the office. Everyone looked tense, worried. What's going on? Lena asked Catherine, who was pacing by the windows. Federal raid. They hit 3 of Marcus's properties this morning, his downtown office, a warehouse in Pilsen, and one of the import facilities. They have warrants, agents, the full show. Catherine's face was grim. Someone talked. Someone gave them enough to get those warrants. Lena's stomach dropped. Is Marcus? He's fine. He wasn't at any of the raided locations, but they're looking for him now, and they have questions. Catherine finally stopped pacing, turned to face Lena. This is what happens when you try to go legitimate. The people who profit from the old ways get nervous. They start making calls to federal prosecutors, offering testimony in exchange for immunity. Who? We don't know yet. That's what Marcus is trying to find out. The hours that followed were agonizing. Lena sat in a guest room trying not to imagine worst-case scenarios, failing miserably. Emma arrived with Vincent, confused and scared, and Lena held her daughter close, whispering reassurances she didn't entirely believe. "Are we in trouble, Mama?" Emma asked, her small face pressed against Lena's shoulder. "No, baby. We're just staying with friends for a little while." "Because of your new job?" Lena hesitated. She told Emma that she was working as a consultant, helping important people with business decisions. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. "Yes, but everything's going to be fine, I promise." She just hoped she could keep that promise. Marcus arrived near midnight, looking like he'd aged a decade in 12 hours. His tie was loose, his jacket gone, exhaustion written in every line of his face. He found Lena in the kitchen, where she was making tea she didn't really want. "Daniel?" she asked immediately. "Safe. He's with my mother in Wisconsin. They can't touch him." Marcus slumped into a chair, rubbed his face with both hands. "The Fed seized documents, hard drives, financial records. They're building a RICO case, racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations. If they can prove I'm running a criminal enterprise, they can take everything. The legitimate businesses, the properties, all of it. But you've been transitioning to legal operations, which makes me a traitor to people who've been in this life for 40 years. They'd rather see me in prison than running a clean business empire." He looked at her, and she saw something that looked like desperation in his eyes. "I have a mole somewhere in my organization. Someone feeding information to the feds, helping them build their case, and I need to find out who before they destroy everything I've built." Lena sat down across from him. "How can I help?" "You can't. This is too dangerous, too—" "Marcus." She reached across the table, took his hand. "You pulled me into this world. Let me help you navigate it." He stared at their joined hands for a long moment. Then, "There's a meeting tomorrow night. My inner circle, the people who know the most about my operations. One of them is dirty. I need you there, watching, observing. If anyone's uncomfortable, nervous, trying too hard to seem normal, I need to know." "You think I can spot a federal informant?" "I think you spotted a loose catwalk that saved my son's life. I think you see what others miss. And right now, I need those eyes." The meeting was held in a private room at a restaurant Marcus owned in River North. Lena arrived early with Catherine, who'd insisted on coming as backup. They positioned themselves in a corner where Lena could observe without being obviously intrusive. 7 men arrived over the next 20 minutes. Lena recognized most of them from her weeks working for Marcus: his CFO, his head of security, his lawyer, his operations managers. These were the people who ran his empire, both the legitimate side and the shadows underneath. Marcus entered last, and the room went quiet. He looked at each man in turn, his face unreadable. "I'm going to make this simple," he said. "Someone in this room is talking to the FBI. Someone is feeding them information, helping them build a case that could destroy everything we've worked for. I'm giving that person one chance to come forward now. Admit it, and we'll work something out. Stay silent, and when I find you, and I will find you, the consequences will be severe." Silence. Lena watched each face carefully. The CFO looked angry, his jaw tight. The head of security seemed calm, almost bored. The lawyer was sweating, but that could just be nerves. The operations managers exchanged glances, then looked away. "No one?" Marcus's voice was soft, dangerous. "Then let me tell you what I know. The feds have detailed financial records from the past 18 months. They have shipping manifests from operations that were supposed to be completely confidential. They have transcripts of conversations that only people in this room should know about." He pulled out a folder, opened it. "They know about the Montenegro deal. They know about the restructuring of the protection territories. They know about the offshore accounts we set up to clean money before transitioning it to legitimate holdings." The room erupted. Men talking over each other, denying involvement, accusing others. Lena watched it all, filtering out the noise, focusing on the details Catherine had taught her to notice. The CFO's anger was genuine, his face flushed, his hands gesturing emphatically. The head of security remained unnaturally calm, but his eyes kept darting to the door. The lawyer had stopped sweating, which was interesting. Fear should intensify under pressure, not dissipate. One of the operations managers, a man named Russo, couldn't stop fidgeting with his wedding ring, twisting it around and around. Enough! Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. We're going to figure this out, together or separately, but we're going to find the rat. Anyone who has information they want to share privately can see me after this meeting. Otherwise, we proceed as planned with increased security protocols. No one discusses business on phones. No one meets with anyone we haven't vetted, and everyone's financials get audited, mine included. The meeting dissolved after that. Men filed out in small groups, their conversations hushed and tense. Lena stayed in her corner processing what she'd seen. Marcus appeared beside her. Well? You're head of security. Lena spoke quietly. He was too calm. Everyone else was angry or nervous or defensive. He was watching you like he was waiting for something. Carlo's been with me for 12 years, which means he knows everything, which makes him either completely loyal or the perfect informant. Lena paused. And Russo, the one who manages your shipping operations. He couldn't stop playing with his wedding ring. That's a self-soothing gesture. He's anxious about something specific. Marcus absorbed this information, his face thoughtful. Carlo's wife has cancer, stage 4. Treatment costs are astronomical even with insurance. Desperate people make desperate choices. And Russo's daughter just got into Yale, full tuition, which he can't afford on his salary. Marcus pulled out his phone, sent a quick text. I'll have both of them followed, see who they're meeting with, where they're going. Marcus, if you're wrong, I know, but if I'm right and I do nothing, I lose everything. He looked at her. You should take Emma and leave Chicago for a while, until this is resolved. I can arrange. No. Lena's voice was firm. I'm not running. You gave me a chance when I needed it most. I'm not abandoning you now. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude, or something deeper that neither of them was ready to name. You're either very brave or very foolish. You said that once before. Still haven't decided which. The investigation moved quickly after that. Marcus's people followed Carlo and Russo, documented their movements, tracked their communications. 3 days later, they had their answer. It was Russo. He'd been meeting with FBI agents twice a week for the past 4 months, feeding them information in exchange for immunity and financial assistance for his daughter's education. The betrayal cut deep. Russo had been with Marcus since the beginning, had been trusted with sensitive operations, had sat at family dinners. What are you going to do? Lena asked when Marcus told her. They were in his office, late at night, the city glittering beyond the windows. Officially? I'm going to have my lawyer negotiate his cooperation with the prosecutors. Minimize the damage, try to work out a deal where the legitimate businesses stay intact. Marcus's voice was hollow. Unofficially? I'm going to make sure everyone knows what happens to people who betray family. You're going to kill him. No. Marcus looked at her, and she saw the weight of leadership in his eyes, the impossible choices, the compromises that chipped away at your soul. I'm going to ruin him, his reputation, his relationships, his ability to ever work in this city again. By the time I'm done, he'll wish I'd killed him. But I won't. Because Daniel doesn't need a father who commits murder. Lena understood then the tightrope Marcus walked, trying to be ruthless enough to survive in his world while remaining human enough to be a good father. It was an impossible balance, and it was breaking him slowly. Let me talk to him, she said. Marcus stared at her. What? Let me talk to Russo. Before you destroy his life, let me understand why. You know why. His daughter's education, that's the what, not the why. There's a difference. Lena stood, moved to the window. You're trying to go legitimate. You're trying to be better than your father. Maybe understanding why your people betray you is part of that process. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Finally, 20 minutes. That's all you get. And I'm sending security with you. They brought Russo to a neutral location, a warehouse that Marcus owned but rarely used, empty except for a table and 2 chairs. The man looked terrified when Lena walked in, his face pale, his hands shaking. You're the waitress, he said. The one from the warehouse. I'm a consultant now. Sit down, Mr. Russo. He sat. Lena took the chair across from him, studied his face. He was maybe 50, with graying hair and kind eyes that were currently filled with panic. I know what you did, Lena said quietly. I know you've been cooperating with the FBI. I know you betrayed Marcus. What I don't know is why. My daughter, Yale. Yes, I know, but Marcus could have helped with that. He has scholarship funds, connections, resources. You could have asked. Russo's face crumpled. You don't understand. When you work for Marcus, you don't ask for help. You show strength. You handle your problems. You never, ever show weakness. My daughter deserved better than what I could give her. The FBI offered me a way to provide that. By destroying the man who employed you for 15 years? By getting out. Russo's voice cracked. Do you know what it's like living in this world? Always looking over your shoulder, always wondering if today's the day someone decides you know too much, or you're a liability, or you looked at the wrong person wrong. I wanted out. I wanted my daughter to have a life that had nothing to do with this. Lena leaned back, processing. So you took the coward's way. I took the only way I saw. No, you took the easy way. The brave thing would have been talking to Marcus, telling him you wanted out, asking for help transitioning to legitimate work. Instead, you stabbed him in the back and justified it by saying you were protecting your daughter. Lena's voice was hard. I have a daughter too, Mr. Russo. She's 7, she has a heart condition, and for years I could barely afford her medication, but I never once considered betraying someone's trust to pay for it. Then you're a better person than I am. No, I just made better choices. Lena stood. Marcus is going to ruin you, not kill you. He's trying to be better than his father, but ruin you so completely that you'll spend the rest of your life wishing you'd made a different choice. And you know what the worst part is? Your daughter will know. She'll know that her Yale education came at the cost of her father's integrity. That's the legacy you're leaving her. She walked to the door, paused with her hand on the handle. You could have been part of something better. Marcus is trying to build an empire his son can be proud of. You could have helped with that. Instead, you chose fear. Russo was crying when she left. Marcus was waiting outside, his face unreadable. What did you learn? That fear makes people stupid. That desperation doesn't justify betrayal. That you need to create better channels for your people to ask for help without feeling weak. Lena met his eyes. And that you're going to lose everything you're building if you don't start trusting the people around you. Trust is a luxury I can't afford. Then you've already lost. The words hung between them, sharp and true. Marcus looked away first. The feds are offering a deal, he said. Russo testifies about the old operations, the illegal stuff my father set up, and they leave the legitimate businesses alone. I keep my empire, stay out of prison, but my reputation takes a hit. And Russo? Witness protection, new identity. His daughter never knows what he did. Marcus's laugh was bitter. He wins. Despite everything, he wins. No one wins in this scenario. Lena touched his arm gently. But you survive, and survival means you can keep building something better. The deal went through a week later. The FBI got their case against the remnants of the old organization. Marcus kept his legitimate holdings, and Russo disappeared into witness protection. The inner circle was shaken, paranoid, but intact. And then Emma collapsed. It happened on a Saturday morning. Lena was making breakfast when she heard the thud from Emma's room. She found her daughter on the floor, unconscious, her lips tinged blue. The ambulance ride was a blur. The emergency room was chaos. Doctors used words like heart failure and immediate intervention and critical condition. Emma's heart, weakened by years of strain, had finally given up. Lena sat in a waiting room, numb with terror, while surgeons worked to stabilize her daughter. She called Marcus because she didn't know who else to call. Because he'd become something more than an employer over the past months. Because she needed someone who understood what it felt like to have your child's life hanging by a thread. He arrived within 20 minutes, still wearing workout clothes, his face etched with concern. He didn't say anything, just sat beside her and took her hand. She needs surgery, Lena whispered. Her heart can't wait anymore. But the wait list for pediatric transplants is years long, and the artificial valve procedure is experimental and costs, how much? $300,000. Maybe more. Marcus pulled out his phone, made a call. Dr. Vance? It's Marcus DeLuca. I need you at Chicago Memorial now. Pediatric cardiac emergency. Yes, the girl I mentioned before. I don't care what you're doing. I need you here in an hour. Thank you. He ended the call, turned to Lena. Dr. Vance is the best pediatric cardiac surgeon in the country. He'll do the valve procedure, today, if necessary. Marcus, I can't afford. I can, and I will. No arguments. His voice was gentle, but absolute. You saved my son's life, Lena. Let me save your daughter's. Tears streamed down Lena's face. I can't pay you back. Not ever. 300,000. I don't want you to pay me back. I want Emma to live. I want you to stop carrying the weight of the world alone. He stopped, seemed to struggle with something. I want to help. Please let me help. Dr. Vance arrived 45 minutes later, examined Emma, and confirmed that she needed immediate surgery. The procedure would take 8 hours, maybe more. Lena signed consent forms with shaking hands, kissed her daughter's forehead, whispered promises she prayed she could keep. I love you, baby. You're going to be fine. Mama's right here. Emma was wheeled away. Lena collapsed into Marcus's arms and sobbed. The surgery took 9 hours. Lena paced the waiting room, unable to sit, unable to eat, unable to think about anything except her daughter's fragile heart struggling on an operating table. Marcus stayed with her the entire time, occasionally making calls to check on Daniel, but never leaving her side. Why are you doing this? Lena asked during the 7th hour, her voice raw from crying. The surgery, staying here, all of it. Marcus was quiet for a moment. When they took Daniel, when I thought I might lose him, I realized that nothing else mattered. Not the empire, not the money, not the power, just him, just making sure he was safe and happy and alive. He looked at her with something painful in his eyes. You understand that. You live it every day. And I guess I wanted you to know that you don't have to live it alone anymore. I barely know you. You know me better than most people. You know what I've done, what I'm trying to become, what I'm afraid of losing. That's more than my own family knows. Before Lena could respond, Dr. Vance emerged from surgery. His face was tired but satisfied. She's stable. The valve is functioning perfectly. Barring complications, Emma should make a full recovery. Lena's knees buckled. Marcus caught her, held her up while she cried tears of relief and gratitude and exhaustion. She'll need monitoring for the next 72 hours, Dr. Vance continued. But I'm optimistic. Your daughter is a fighter, Miss Brooks. Can I see her? In about an hour, once she's settled in ICU. But yes. The doctor left. Lena turned to Marcus, tried to find words adequate to express what she was feeling, failed completely. Thank you, she finally whispered. Thank you for giving me my daughter back. Marcus cupped her face gently, wiped away her tears with his thumbs. You gave me my son. This is the least I could do. They stood like that for a long moment, something unspoken building between them. Gratitude and understanding, and the beginning of something that looked like trust, like partnership, like the foundation of something neither of them had expected to find. Emma survived the critical period. 3 days later, she was moved to a regular room, color returning to her cheeks, her smile bright despite the tubes and monitors. Lena barely left her side, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair, eating when nurses forced food on her. Marcus visited every day, bringing books and puzzles for Emma, bringing coffee and encouragement for Lena. Daniel came once, shy and curious, and the two 7-year-olds bonded over their shared experience of hospitals and fear and brave parents who would do anything to protect them. Your dad saved my mom, Emma told Daniel seriously. She was sad all the time before. Now she smiles more. Daniel considered this. Your mom saved my dad too. He says she's the bravest person he knows. The children's simple truth made Lena's throat tight. 2 weeks after the surgery, Emma was discharged with excellent prognosis and strict follow-up protocols. Lena brought her home to their small apartment, which suddenly felt different, not shabby and insufficient, but cozy and safe and full of possibility. That night, after Emma fell asleep, Lena stood at her kitchen window looking out at Chicago's skyline. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 months ago, desperate, exhausted, drowning. She thought about chasing Marcus through the rain, about returning money she couldn't afford to lose, about making a choice based on what was right rather than what was easy. That choice had changed everything, had saved her daughter's life, had given her meaningful work, had introduced her to people who saw her as more than invisible. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "How's Emma?" "Sleeping peacefully. How's Daniel?" "Same. He wants to have a play date with Emma when she's stronger." "I'd like that." A pause, then, "Lena, about what happened at the hospital, what I said, I know, me too." Another pause, longer this time. Finally, "We should talk, soon, about where this is going." Lena stared at the message, her heart pounding. She knew what he was asking, knew that they'd crossed lines over the past months, had become something more complicated than employer and employee, something deeper than allies in a dangerous world. "Yes," she typed, "we should talk." But not tonight. Tonight she just wanted to stand in her kitchen and be grateful. Grateful for Emma's steady breathing in the next room. Grateful for the second chance she'd been given. Grateful for the choice she'd made on a rainy night that had seemed small but had turned out to be the beginning of everything. The conversation Marcus suggested never happened. Not the next day or the day after that. Instead, crisis came calling again, this time wearing the face of Marcus's past. Lena was at the office reviewing security footage from one of Marcus's restaurants when Catherine burst through the door, her usually composed face tight with alarm. "We have a problem. Marcus needs you at the house. Now." "What's wrong?" His ex-wife showed up. She's demanding to see Daniel, claiming she's clean and wants to renegotiate custody, and she didn't come alone. The drive to Lincoln Park took 15 minutes that felt like hours. Lena's mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. She'd learned enough about Marcus's ex-wife over the past months to know that her sudden appearance meant trouble. The woman, Nicole, had a pattern of getting clean just long enough to create chaos, then disappearing back into addiction. Vincent pulled up to the house to find 3 cars already parked out front, their occupants' unmistakably legal representation. Marcus stood on the front steps, his body language rigid with controlled fury, facing a woman who must have been beautiful once, but now looked hollowed out by whatever substances she'd been using. "You can't keep me from my son," Nicole was saying, her voice shrill. "I have rights. I'm his mother." "You're a stranger who shares his DNA." Marcus's voice was ice. "You missed his last 3 birthdays. You canceled supervised visits because you were too high to show up. You don't get to walk in here and demand anything." "I'm clean now. 6 months sober. I have documentation." Nicole gestured to one of the men beside her, a lawyer, clearly, with the smug expression of someone who thought they held winning cards. "My attorney says I have grounds to petition for joint custody." Lena approached quietly, taking in the scene. Nicole was thin to the point of fragility. Her clothes expensive but hanging wrong on her frame. Her eyes were bright but unfocused, darting everywhere except directly at Marcus. The lawyer beside her kept checking his watch like he had somewhere more important to be. And behind them, partially hidden by the cars, was a third figure. A man Lena didn't recognize, heavy-set and watching everything with predatory interest. "Marcus?" Lena said softly. He turned, relief flickering across his face when he saw her. "Lena, Nicole, this is the waitress." Nicole's laugh was sharp, brittle. "I heard about you. The saint who saved Daniel, the pure soul who made Marcus believe in redemption." Her gaze raked over Lena with contempt. "You think you know him? You think 6 months of playing house gives you any idea who Marcus DeLuca really is?" "I think I know he's a good father who loves his son." Lena kept her voice calm, refusing to rise to the bait. "And I think Daniel deserves stability, which you haven't been able to provide." Nicole's face twisted. "You don't know anything about what I can provide. I'm his mother. I carried him, I gave birth to him, and no court is going to deny me access to my child just because his father has money and connections." The lawyer stepped forward, handing Marcus an envelope. "Petition for emergency custody modification. We're filing tomorrow morning. Mrs. DeLuca has completed a certified rehabilitation program and has been clean for 6 months. She has a stable residence and employment. The court will see that she's made significant strides toward recovery." Marcus took the envelope without opening it. "Get off my property." "This isn't over, Marcus," Nicole's voice cracked. "I want to see my son. I just want to see him, talk to him, let him know I'm trying. You want to disrupt his life so you can feel better about yourself. Marcus's control was slipping, anger bleeding through. You want to walk in here after years of abandonment and play mother because you're between relapses and someone convinced you this was a good idea. But Daniel doesn't need that. He's happy, he's healthy, he's safe, and I will burn everything I have to keep it that way. The man who'd been standing by the cars moved forward, and Lena's danger instincts fired. Something about him was wrong. The way he moved, the way his hand stayed inside his jacket, the cold calculation in his eyes. "We should go, Nicole," the man said. His voice was rough, Chicago streets underneath a thin veneer of civility. "Give the lawyer time to file the papers. We'll see you in court, DeLuca." Recognition flashed across Marcus's face. Sal Moretti. "I should have known you'd be involved in this. Just helping a lady get what's rightfully hers." Moretti smiled, showing too many teeth. "Funny how things work out. You spend years pushing out the old families, trying to go legitimate, and now your past is coming back to bite you. Literally." The pieces clicked into place for Lena. This wasn't about Nicole wanting to see her son. This was about Marcus's enemies finding a vulnerability and exploiting it. Moretti was one of the old guard, someone who'd lost territory and income when Marcus started transitioning to legitimate business. Using Nicole's parental rights as a weapon was brilliant in its cruelty. "This is about revenge," Lena said, drawing everyone's attention. "You're using a sick woman and a child to get back at Marcus for business decisions." Moretti's smile widened. "That's a serious accusation, miss. I'm just helping a concerned mother reconnect with her son. If that happens to make DeLuca's life difficult, well, that's just a happy coincidence." "Get them out of here," Marcus said to Vincent, who'd appeared with 2 other security men. "Now. And if any of you set foot on this property again without a court order, you'll be arrested for trespassing." Nicole started crying, real tears or performance, Lena couldn't tell. "I just want to see Daniel. Please, Marcus, 5 minutes. Let me tell him I love him." For a moment, Marcus's face softened. Lena saw the war happening behind his eyes. The part of him that wanted to believe Nicole could change, that wanted Daniel to have a relationship with his mother, fighting against the part that knew better, that had been burned too many times. "No," he said finally. "Not like this. Not with them pulling your strings. When you're really clean, not 6 months, not a year, but really, truly sober and stable. We can talk. But not today." Nicole collapsed against her lawyer, sobbing. Moretti's expression hardened with anger, but he helped her to the car. Within minutes, they were gone, leaving Marcus and Lena standing on the steps as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn. "She'll never be clean," Marcus said quietly. "I've been through this cycle a dozen times. She gets sober just long enough to feel guilty, tries to make amends, then the guilt becomes too heavy, and she uses again. It's a pattern." "But the custody petition is real." "Real enough. Even if she's using Moretti, even if this is manipulation, she has legal grounds. A judge could order supervised visitation, could mandate that I give her access." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "Daniel barely remembers her. The last time she saw him, she was so high she didn't recognize him. Now I'm supposed to let her back into his life because she completed a 30-day program." Lena touched his arm gently. "What does Daniel want?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I've never asked him. How do you ask a 7-year-old if he wants to see the mother who abandoned him? Carefully, honestly. The same way you handle everything else with him." They went inside. Daniel was in the living room with his nanny, building an elaborate structure with wooden blocks. He looked up when Marcus entered, and his face lit up with uncomplicated joy. "Dad, look, I'm making a castle with a dragon's lair." Marcus knelt beside his son, studying the construction with exaggerated seriousness. "That's impressive. But won't the dragon burn down the wooden walls?" "The dragon's nice. He protects the castle instead of attacking it." Something in Marcus's expression cracked. He pulled Daniel into a hug, holding him tight enough that the boy squirmed. "Dad, you're squishing me." "Sorry, I just love you very much." "I love you too. Can Lena see my castle?" Lena came over, admired the architecture, helped add a tower for the dragon to sleep in. She watched Marcus with his son and saw the tenderness there, the fierce protectiveness, the willingness to destroy anyone who threatened this child's happiness. Later, after Daniel was in bed, Marcus poured them both whiskey in his study, and they sat in comfortable silence, processing the day's chaos. Moretti's going to push this, Marcus said finally. He'll make sure Nicole has the best lawyers, the best documentation, the best chance of getting access to Daniel. Not because he cares about her or my son, but because it hurts me. Because every custody hearing, every supervised visit, every disruption to Daniel's routine is a victory for him. Then we need to make sure he doesn't win. We? Marcus looked at her. This isn't your fight, Lena. Yes, it is. You made Emma's medical crisis your fight. You didn't hesitate, didn't calculate the cost, just helped because it was the right thing to do. Let me return the favor. Marcus set down his glass, stood, and moved to the window. You don't understand what you're offering. Going against Moretti means going against the old families, the people who think I betrayed everything my father built. It means becoming a target, you and Emma both. I understand perfectly. Lena joined him at the window, stood close enough that their shoulders touched. I also understand that some fights are worth the risk. Daniel deserves better than being used as a pawn in someone else's revenge scheme. You're either the bravest person I've ever met, or the most reckless. You keep saying that. Still haven't figured out which? Marcus turned to face her, and suddenly the air between them was charged with something that had been building for months. I think you're brave. I think you see the world clearly and choose kindness anyway, which is the rarest thing I've encountered. I think you make me want to be better than I am. Marcus, I know this is complicated. I know I'm offering you a life that involves danger and moral compromise and constantly looking over your shoulder. I know you deserve better than a man with my history, my baggage, my enemies. He touched her face gently, the gesture almost reverent. But I'm asking anyway. Not as your employer, not as someone you owe anything to, but as someone who's falling for you and doesn't know how to stop. Lena's breath caught. She'd known this was coming, had felt the pull between them growing stronger, but hearing the words made it real in a way that terrified and thrilled her. I have a daughter, she said. She comes first, always. I know, and I have a son who comes first for me. We understand that about each other. Your world is dangerous, yes, but I'm working to make it less so. Every legitimate business I build, every old connection I cut, every step toward something cleaner, that's me trying to create a future where Daniel can be proud of what I've built, where you and Emma could be part of that without constantly being at risk. That's a beautiful dream, Marcus. But dreams don't stop bullets or legal battles or enemies who want revenge. No, but they give us something to fight for. He stepped closer, close enough that Lena could feel the warmth of him, smell the whiskey on his breath. I'm not asking you to decide right now. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that maybe we could build something together, something good despite everything working against us. Lena looked up at him, this man who'd entered her life on the worst night and somehow become essential. I'm scared, she whispered. Good. Fear means you're paying attention, but don't let it make your decisions. He kissed her then, soft and careful, giving her every chance to pull away. Lena didn't pull away. She leaned into it, into him, into the possibility of something she'd stopped believing she deserved. When they finally separated, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. Stay tonight. Not for anything except company. I don't want to be alone after today. Emma's with Mrs. Chen until tomorrow afternoon. Then stay. They fell asleep on the couch in his study, wrapped around each other like survivors of a shipwreck, holding tight to something solid in a world that kept trying to pull them under. The custody battle began in earnest the next week. Nicole's lawyers filed their petition, and Marcus's legal team responded with documentation of every missed visit, every failed drug test, every broken promise. It was ugly and public and exactly what Moretti wanted. Marcus distracted, off balance, vulnerable. But Lena had learned to see what others missed, and she noticed something interesting. Nicole's 6-month sobriety timeline doesn't match her lawyer's documentation, she told Marcus one evening, spreading papers across his dining room table. The rehabilitation facility she supposedly attended closed 4 months ago. The completion certificate is dated 3 months after the facility shut down. Marcus leaned over her shoulder, scanning the documents. You're saying the sobriety claim is fabricated? I'm saying someone got sloppy. They created a paper trail that looks good on the surface, but the details don't hold up under scrutiny. Can we prove it? Catherine and I already started. The facility's records were transferred to another program when they closed. We have a contact there who's willing to confirm that Nicole's name doesn't appear in any of their files. Marcus stared at her. How did you... I told you. I noticed things. Lena gathered the papers, organized them into a folder. But this only works if we can prove Moretti was behind the fabrication. Otherwise, it just looks like Nicole tried to fake sobriety, which hurts her, but doesn't stop him from finding another weapon to use against you. The answer came from an unexpected source. Vincent had been quietly investigating Moretti's recent activities and discovered something interesting. The lawyer representing Nicole had previously represented one of Moretti's shell companies in a fraud case. The connection was circumstantial but suggestive. More importantly, the lawyer had a weakness. Gambling debts, Vincent explained, showing them financial records that had been obtained through means Lena decided not to examine too closely. He's into some very dangerous people for close to $200,000. He took Nicole's case because Moretti paid him $50,000 up front and promised another $50,000 if the custody petition succeeded. So we buy him off, Marcus said immediately. No, Lena's voice was firm. We give him a better option. We offer to clear his debts completely, not as a bribe, but as payment for the truth. He testifies that Moretti coerced him into fabricating Nicole's sobriety documentation, that the whole custody petition was a setup designed to hurt you, and in exchange, he walks away clean. Marcus looked at her with something like awe. You've gotten very good at this. I learned from the best. The lawyer, his name was Reynolds, agreed to meet them at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Hyde Park, far from Moretti's usual territory. He looked exhausted when he arrived, the kind of bone-deep weariness that came from living with impossible debt and impossible choices. I can't testify against Moretti, Reynolds said after Marcus laid out their offer. He'll kill me. Not metaphorically, literally kill me. We'll put you in witness protection, Marcus countered. New identity, new city, a clean slate. Your debt's cleared, a settlement that gives you enough to start over somewhere Moretti can't reach you. Well, why would you do this? I tried to help take your son from you. Because you're a desperate man being used by someone who enjoys causing pain. Because I understand that desperation makes us do things we regret. Because I'd rather give you a second chance than punish you for being human. Marcus leaned forward. But mostly because I need Moretti to pay for using a sick woman and an innocent child to settle a business grudge. Your testimony does that. Reynolds was quiet for a long time. Lena watched the war happening behind his eyes, fear fighting against hope, self-preservation battling the chance at redemption. I want it in writing, Reynolds finally said. The debt clearance, the witness protection, all of it. Legal contracts that guarantee my safety. Done. The testimony came 2 weeks later, presented to the family court judge in a closed hearing. Reynolds laid out everything. Moretti's involvement, the fabricated sobriety documents, the $100,000 in payments designed to make Nicole's petition look legitimate. The judge was not amused. Nicole, confronted with the evidence, broke down completely. It turned out she hadn't even known the documents were fake. Moretti's people had handled everything, told her it was all legitimate, used her genuine desire to see Daniel as cover for their scheme. I just wanted to tell him, I'm sorry, Nicole sobbed in the courthouse hallway after the judge dismissed her petition. I know I'm a terrible mother. I know I don't deserve him. I just wanted him to know that I think about him every day, that I wish I could be what he needs. Marcus's face was stone, but Lena saw the pain underneath. Nicole, you need real help. Not a 30-day program, not fake documentation, but actual sustained treatment. If you ever really get clean, if you ever really do the work, we can talk about supervised visits. But not before. Daniel deserves better than the chaos you bring. I know. Nicole wiped her eyes, and for a moment Lena saw the woman she must have been before addiction consumed her. Take care of him. And Marcus, I'm sorry. For all of it. She walked away, escorted by her new lawyer, a public defender who'd replaced Reynolds when the truth came out. Lena felt unexpected sympathy for her. Nicole was a victim too, just of different circumstances and different choices. But Moretti was still a problem. The custody battle had failed, but he had other weapons. Over the next month, 3 of Marcus's restaurants failed health inspections that were clearly fabricated. 2 of his shipping contracts mysteriously evaporated. A warehouse fire destroyed $250,000 in legitimate inventory, and while arson couldn't be proved, everyone knew who was responsible. He's escalating, Catherine warned during a strategy meeting. Moretti thought the custody play would destroy you emotionally and legally. Now that it failed, he's going after your business directly. Let him try, Marcus said. His voice was calm, but Lena heard the steel underneath. Every attack makes him more visible, more vulnerable. We document everything, build a case, and when the time is right, we end this permanently. How? Lena asked. Marcus's smile was cold. By giving the federal prosecutors something they want more than me. Moretti's been running illegal gambling operations for 30 years. He has connections to drug trafficking, money laundering, political corruption. If I hand them Moretti on a platter, they forget about their interest in my past activities. Everybody wins except Sal. It was ruthless. It was calculated. It was exactly the kind of move that Marcus's father would have made. But Lena saw the difference. The old Marcus DeLuca would have handled this with violence, would have sent men to make Moretti disappear, would have solved problems with bullets and fear. This Marcus was using the system, was building legal cases, was trying to end threats without adding to the body count. I'll help, Lena said. Whatever you need. Over the next 6 weeks, they built the case against Moretti. Lena attended parties where she overheard conversations about illegal betting. Vincent documented cash transfers and suspicious meetings. Catherine used her social connections to identify Moretti's political allies and their vulnerabilities. They assembled a web of evidence that connected Moretti to a dozen illegal operations, then handed it to the FBI agent who'd been investigating Marcus. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. You're giving us Sal Moretti? The agent, a woman named Chen who'd been dogging Marcus for 2 years, looked skeptical. What's the catch? No catch. Moretti came after my family. This is me ending that threat using legal channels instead of the alternatives my father would have chosen. Marcus pushed a thick folder across the table. Everything you need is in there. Witness statements, financial records, documentation of at least 15 separate criminal enterprises. You arrest Moretti, you close a dozen cases that have been open for years. Agent Chen opened the folder, scanned the contents, and her eyes widened. This is solid. This is actually prosecutable. I know. Do we have a deal? Meaning what? You give us Moretti, and we forget about investigating your operations? Meaning you acknowledge that I've been transitioning to completely legitimate business for the past 3 years? Meaning you recognize that I'm helping you do your job? Meaning we stop being enemies and start being allies in cleaning up this city? Marcus leaned back. I'm not asking you to ignore crimes. I'm asking you to see that I'm trying to be part of the solution. Agent Chen studied him for a long moment. Then she extended her hand. Deal. But DeLuca, if I find out you're playing me, if any of this information is fabricated or designed to mislead, the deal's off and I come after you twice as hard. Understood. The arrest happened 3 days later. Federal agents hit 4 of Moretti's properties simultaneously, seizing records, freezing assets, taking into custody a dozen of his top associates. Moretti himself was arrested at his home in Oak Park, led away in handcuffs while news cameras captured everything. The fallout was spectacular. Politicians scrambled to distance themselves from Moretti. Business associates claimed they'd never known about his illegal activities. The old families that had supported him suddenly developed amnesia about their connections, and Marcus DeLuca, once viewed as a traitor to the old ways, was suddenly seen as a man who'd chosen the right side of history. It's not over, Marcus warned Lena as they watched news coverage of Moretti's arraignment. He still has lawyers, still has connections. He might make bail, might cut a deal, might find another way to come after us. But he's wounded, and everyone knows you're the one who brought him down. That sends a message to anyone else thinking about using your family as a weapon. Marcus pulled her close, and Lena leaned into his warmth. They'd become this over the past months, partners in every sense, watching each other's backs, building something that looked increasingly like a future. Daniel wants to know when Emma can come over for that play date, Marcus said quietly. He asks about her constantly. Emma asks about Daniel too, and about you. She's decided you're basically a superhero. I'm the furthest thing from a hero. That's not what she sees. That's not what I see either. Lena tilted her head up to look at him. You're a man trying to be better than his past. That's the most heroic thing I know. Marcus kissed her temple, a gesture that had become familiar and precious. Move in with me. You and Emma, both. I have space, resources, security, and I want to wake up every morning knowing you're both safe. Lena's heart stuttered. That's a big step. I know, and I know it's fast and probably crazy and definitely complicated. But I'm tired of wasting time. I'm tired of pretending this is just business or just convenience. I love you, Lena Brooks. I love your courage and your kindness and the way you see the world. And I love Emma like she's already mine, so move in. Let me be part of your life in all the ways that matter. Tears pricked Lena's eyes. I love you too. I think I have since that night in the warehouse when you dropped to your knees for your son. When you showed me that powerful men could also be devoted fathers. Is that a yes? That's a yes. But we tell Emma together, and we let her ask questions, and we make sure she knows that you're not trying to replace anyone or change our lives. You're just making them bigger and safer and better. Deal. They told Emma the next evening over pizza in Lena's apartment. The little girl listened carefully, asked thoughtful questions about her room and her toys and whether Mrs. Chen could still visit, then rendered her verdict with the seriousness only a 7-year-old could manage. Will Daniel be my brother? Marcus smiled. Would you like him to be? Emma considered this. Yes, but only if I can teach him about dragons. He knows castles, but he's not very good at dragon lore. I'm sure he'd be grateful for the education. Okay then, we can move. Emma turned to her mother. But Mama, does this mean you and Mr. Marcus are in love? Lena glanced at Marcus, saw him waiting for her answer with the same careful hope that Daniel probably used when asking for extra dessert. Yes, baby, we're in love. Emma nodded sagely. I thought so. You smile different when he's around. Out of the mouths of babes came truth that adults spent months trying to articulate. They moved in 2 weeks later, Lena and Emma's modest belongings filling corners of Marcus's spacious home, making it feel more complete. The children bonded over shared trauma and resilience, becoming siblings in all the ways that mattered. Mrs. Chen visited regularly, delighted to find her favorite little girl thriving in a house with a yard and security, and 2 parents who clearly adored her. The night after they moved in, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Marcus found Lena on the back patio looking up at Chicago's light-polluted sky. Regrets? He asked, settling beside her. Not even one. You? Only that I didn't chase you down that rainy night and tell you then what I know now, that you were going to change my life completely. Lena laughed softly. I was a broke waitress returning $3,000. How could you possibly have known? Because only an extraordinary person makes that choice. Everything else was just details waiting to unfold. They sat in comfortable silence, 2 people who'd found each other in chaos and built something resembling peace. Outside the walls of Marcus's home, Chicago hummed with its usual mix of beauty and danger. But inside, for now, everything was safe and warm and right. Tomorrow came sooner than expected, wearing the face of Marcus's greatest fear. It started with a phone call at 3 in the morning, the kind that never brought good news. Lena woke to Marcus sitting on the edge of the bed, his phone pressed to his ear, his entire body rigid with tension. When? His voice was deadly calm. How many? No, don't move, Daniel. I'm coming to you. He ended the call and stood, already reaching for clothes. Lena sat up, her heart hammering. What's wrong? Moretti made bail, and he just sent a message. Marcus's face was carved from stone. 3 of my businesses were hit tonight. Coordinated attacks, fires, vandalism, threats to employees. No one was hurt, but the message is clear. He's coming for everything I have. What about Daniel? He's with my mother in Wisconsin. I'm sending Vincent and a full security team. Moretti won't touch him. Marcus pulled on his shirt, his movements sharp and controlled. But you and Emma need to leave Chicago. Today. I have a house in Montana completely off the grid. You'll be safe there until this is resolved. No. Lena stood, moved to face him. We're not running. Lena, this isn't a negotiation. Moretti's out of options. His arrest destroyed his reputation, cost him millions in seized assets, turned his allies against him. He has nothing left to lose, which makes him more dangerous than ever. I won't risk you and Emma, and I won't abandon you when you need us most. Lena took his hands, forced him to meet her eyes. You told me once that you wanted Daniel to inherit something he could be proud of. How do you think he'll feel if his father sends away the people he loves every time things get dangerous? What does that teach him about family? Marcus's jaw tightened. It teaches him that I keep the people I love alive. It teaches him that love means running when things get hard, that family is conditional, that safety matters more than standing together. Lena moved closer. I'm not naive, Marcus. I know this is dangerous. But we've been building something here. You, me, Emma, Daniel, a real family. And families don't scatter at the first sign of trouble. This isn't the first sign. It's the storm. Then we weather it together. They stared at each other, wills clashing, until finally Marcus closed his eyes and pulled her against his chest. You're going to give me a heart attack. That's fair. You've given me several. Despite everything, Marcus laughed, a short, sharp sound that held more stress than humor. If you're staying, we do this my way. Enhanced security, no going anywhere without Vincent, and you follow every protocol exactly as I lay it out. Agreed? Agreed. The house became a fortress. Security personnel rotated in 12-hour shifts. Cameras covered every angle. The children weren't allowed outside without 3 guards present. It was suffocating and necessary and terrifying. Emma handled it better than Lena expected. She'd lived through her mother's medical debt crisis, had learned early that sometimes life got scary and you just had to be brave. Daniel, having survived his own kidnapping, understood on a bone-deep level why the rules existed. We're like a castle under siege, he explained to Emma one afternoon as they colored at the kitchen table under Catherine's watchful eye. The dragon is circling, but the walls are strong. When do the walls stop being strong enough? Emma asked, with the brutal honesty of children. Daniel considered this seriously. When we forget why we're protecting the castle, but as long as we remember that we're protecting each other, the walls stay strong. My dad told me that. Lena, listening from the doorway, felt her throat tighten. These children had seen too much, understood too much. But they were also resilient in ways that gave her hope. The attacks continued for a week. Small, strategic strikes designed to bleed Marcus's resources and test his defenses. A shipment hijacked. A restaurant firebombed. Employees threatened. Each incident carefully calculated to cause maximum disruption without triggering a full law enforcement response. He's trying to draw me out, Marcus said during a late-night strategy session with his core team. He wants me angry, wants me to make a mistake, wants me to revert to the old ways so he can claim self-defense when he comes after my family. So we don't give him what he wants, Lena said. She'd been studying Moretti's pattern, looking for the details everyone else missed. Every attack has been against property or business interests. He's avoided direct confrontation. Why? Vincent spoke up. Because he's building a case. If he can prove Marcus started the violence, if he can claim he was just defending himself against a rival crime boss, it gives him leverage with the prosecutors. Maybe even gets his charges reduced. Exactly. So we document everything, we maintain the moral high ground, and we make sure that when this ends, Moretti's the only one who looks like the aggressor. Lena pulled out her tablet, showed them the timeline she'd constructed. But there's something else. Look at the targets. They're all businesses that Marcus has already transitioned to completely legitimate operations. None of the attacks have touched anything that could be connected to the old organization. Marcus studied the timeline, understanding dawning on his face. He's trying to force me back into the life. If he destroys my legitimate empire, I have to fall back on the illegal operations to survive. And if I do that, the federal case against me gets reopened. It's elegant, Catherine admitted grudgingly. Moretti goes down, but he takes you with him. Revenge and practical strategy all at once. Then we don't take the bait. Marcus's voice was firm. We absorb the losses, we rebuild what's destroyed, and we stay clean. Eventually Moretti runs out of targets or resources, and when he does, we end this permanently. But Moretti had one more play, and it was the one none of them saw coming. It happened on a Saturday morning. Lena was making breakfast while the children played upstairs and Marcus reviewed security reports in his study. The doorbell rang, which was unusual. Visitors had to be cleared through 3 checkpoints before reaching the house. Vincent answered, then appeared in the kitchen doorway with a strange expression on his face. Mrs. Brooks, there's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. Who? Your mother. Lena's world tilted. She hadn't seen her mother in 8 years, not since the woman had walked out of her life after Lena got pregnant. Her mother had made it clear that a single mother raising a sick child was an embarrassment she wanted no part of. Tell her to leave. She says Moretti sent her. Says if you don't talk to her, he'll make good on threats against Emma's school. Ice flooded Lena's veins. She followed Vincent to the front door, where a woman in her late 50s stood looking uncomfortable and defiant in equal measure. She'd aged poorly, her face lined with bitterness and cigarettes, her clothes cheap and ill-fitting. "Hello, Lena. What do you want? Can I come in? It's cold out here." "No, say whatever Moretti paid you to say and leave." Her mother's face hardened. "Always so superior, weren't you? Always thought you were better than the rest of us. Well, look at you now, shacking up with a gangster, putting my granddaughter in danger. Emma is not your granddaughter. You gave up that right when you abandoned us." Lena's voice was ice. "Tell me what Moretti wants or get off this property." "He wants you to convince Marcus to back off, to drop the federal case, withdraw the evidence, let him go free. If Marcus does that, Moretti disappears and everyone lives happily ever after. And if we refuse?" Her mother's smile was cruel. "Then Moretti has people ready to grab Emma from school, not to hurt her, just to hold her until Marcus sees reason. A few hours, maybe a day, just long enough to make his point." Rage flooded through Lena so intense she had to grab the doorframe to stay upright. "You would help someone kidnap your own granddaughter for money?" "I'd help protect her from the dangerous life you've dragged her into. Moretti's offering me $50,000 to deliver the message and another $50,000 if it works. That's more than you ever gave me. I gave you everything. I begged you for help when Emma was diagnosed, when I couldn't afford her medication, when I was drowning." Lena's hand moved before her brain caught up, slapping her mother hard enough to leave a red mark. "Get out! Tell Moretti that if he comes near Emma, if he so much as looks at her school, I will personally destroy him. Not Marcus. Me." Her mother touched her reddening cheek, eyes bright with malice. "You think you're so tough now, but you're still just a frightened waitress playing dress-up in a world you don't understand. Moretti's going to take everything from you, and I'm going to enjoy watching it happen." Vincent stepped forward, his presence menacing despite his calm expression. "Time to leave, ma'am. Unless you'd like me to call the police and report an extortion attempt?" Her mother left, but the damage was done. Lena stood shaking in the doorway until Marcus appeared, having heard enough of the conversation to understand what had happened. "We're moving Emma to a private school with better security," he said immediately. "And I'm putting a protection detail on her 24/7. Moretti won't get near her." "He already did," Lena's voice cracked. "He found the one person who could hurt me worse than any physical threat. My own mother." Marcus pulled her close, and Lena finally let herself break, sobbing against his chest with rage and grief and fear. How had her life become this? How had trying to do one good thing, returning money that wasn't hers, led to her daughter being threatened by a monster using her own grandmother as a weapon? "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry I brought this into your life." "But you didn't. I chose this. I chose you." Lena pulled back, wiped her eyes. "But Marcus, we have to end this. We can't keep living in a fortress, can't keep waiting for Moretti's next move. We have to finish it." "How?" "If I go after him directly, I'm proving I'm still the violent criminal the feds think I am. If I do nothing, he keeps escalating until someone gets hurt." Lena thought about her years as a waitress, about being invisible, about seeing what others missed. An idea formed, dangerous, risky, but possibly their only option. "What if we give him what he wants?" Marcus stared at her. "Absolutely not. I'm not letting Moretti walk free." "Not actually. But what if we make him think he's won? What if I go to him, convince him that you're willing to withdraw the evidence, set up a meeting to negotiate terms?" Lena spoke faster as the plan crystallized. "You wire me, record everything he says. He'll brag, he'll threaten, he'll incriminate himself. Then we give that recording to Agent Chen along with evidence of the extortion attempt using my mother. We bury him so deep he never sees daylight again." "You're talking about wearing a wire into a meeting with a man who's already threatened to kidnap your daughter. That's insane. That's necessary, and I'm the only one who can do it. He sees you as the threat. But me? I'm just the waitress who got lucky. He'll underestimate me, and that's when we strike." Marcus started pacing, his mind clearly working through scenarios, calculating risks. Catherine, who'd appeared during the conversation, spoke up. It could work. If we control the location, if we have security positioned properly, if Lena can get him talking, we'd have everything we need to ensure he never threatens this family again. Or he kills her the moment he suspects something. Marcus's voice was rough with fear. I've already lost too much. I won't risk losing her. Lena moved to stand in front of him, stopping his pacing. You're not losing me. We're taking back control. Together. She touched his face gently. You taught me to be brave, Marcus. You showed me that sometimes you have to fight for what matters. Emma matters. Daniel matters. This family we're building matters. And I will not let Sal Moretti destroy it. The setup took 3 days. Agent Chen agreed to the plan reluctantly, providing Lena with a wire so small and sophisticated it was virtually undetectable. Vincent selected the location, a restaurant Marcus owned that had been closed for renovations, allowing them to position agents and security throughout the building without arousing suspicion. Lena's mother delivered the message that Marcus was willing to negotiate, and Moretti agreed to meet. The day of the meeting, Lena stood in Marcus's bedroom getting ready while he hovered like an anxious parent. You don't have to do this, he said for the 100th time. We can find another way. There is no other way. You know that. Lena checked her appearance in the mirror, professional but not threatening, successful but not intimidating. The wire was taped to her ribcage, invisible under her blouse. I'll be fine. Vincent and Agent Chen's team will be right outside, and you'll be listening to everything. That's what terrifies me. I'll have to listen to him threaten you and not be able to intervene without blowing the operation. Lena turned to face him. Then trust me to handle it. Trust that I'm stronger than I look. Trust that the invisible waitress knows how to navigate dangerous situations because I've been doing it my whole life. Marcus pulled her close, kissed her with desperate intensity. If anything happens to you, it won't. We're ending this today, and then we're going to have that normal, boring life we've been dreaming about. The restaurant was in a quiet neighborhood, its windows covered with renovation permits. Lena arrived exactly on time, her heart pounding but her hands steady. Moretti was already there, sitting at a table in the empty dining room with 2 of his men flanking him. He looked smaller than she'd expected. Prison and legal troubles had worn him down, made him look older than his 50-something years. But his eyes were still sharp, still calculating, still dangerous. Mrs. Brooks, thank you for coming. Moretti gestured to the chair across from him. I hope your mother delivered my message clearly. She did, and I'm here to tell you that Marcus is willing to negotiate. Lena sat, crossed her legs, projected confidence she didn't entirely feel. But I need to understand exactly what you want. Simple. Marcus withdraws the evidence he gave to the FBI. He tells them it was all fabricated, that he was trying to frame me because of a business dispute. He makes me the victim instead of the villain. And in exchange, I leave Chicago. I leave him alone. Everyone moves on with their lives. Moretti leaned back. Of course, there's the matter of compensation for the damage he's done to my reputation and my business interests. I'm thinking 10 million covers it. Lena laughed, a sound that surprised everyone, including herself. 10 million to withdraw evidence and lie to federal prosecutors? That's a lot of money for something that makes Marcus look like a criminal. Then he shouldn't have come after me. Moretti's smile was cold. But let's be honest, Mrs. Brooks, we both know Marcus is a criminal. He's just better at hiding it than I am. This whole going legitimate act is just that, an act. He's his father's son, and eventually he'll revert to type. You don't know him at all. I know him better than you do. I knew his father, worked with him for 20 years. The DeLucas are predators, Mrs. Brooks. They dress it up in fancy suits and legitimate businesses, but underneath they're the same violent animals they've always been. Marcus just has you fooled into thinking otherwise. Is that why you sent my mother to threaten Emma? Because you think Marcus is the predator? Lena kept her voice steady, knowing every word was being recorded. Using a 7-year-old girl with a heart condition as leverage, that seems pretty predatory to me. Moretti's expression hardened. I did what was necessary to get Marcus's attention. Your daughter was never in real danger. She was threatened with kidnapping. A bluff. I would never actually hurt a child. But his eyes said otherwise, and Lena felt cold fear slide down her spine. So if Marcus pays you 10 million and withdraws the evidence, you'll leave us alone? You'll leave Emma alone? Of course. I'm a businessman, not a monster. Unlike Marcus, I keep my word. And if we refuse? Moretti leaned forward, all pretense of civility dropping away. Then I make good on every threat I've made. Your daughter disappears for a few days. Not hurt, just scared. Marcus's businesses burn. His son's school gets very interesting, threatening letters. Everyone you both love learns what it means to cross Sal Moretti. You're confessing to conspiracy to commit kidnapping, arson, extortion, and terroristic threats. Lena's voice was calm despite the fear racing through her. You understand that, right? Moretti's eyes narrowed. What are you? I'm the woman who's been recording every word you just said. Lena stood slowly. I'm the waitress who notices everything and forgets nothing. I'm the mother who will destroy anyone who threatens her child. And I'm the partner of a man who's trying to be better than his father, which means I won't let you drag him back into the darkness. Moretti lunged across the table, his hands reaching for her throat. Lena stumbled back as his guards moved, but before they could reach her, doors burst open from 3 directions simultaneously. FBI! Hands in the air! Agent Chen's team swarmed in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Moretti was face down on the floor in seconds, his guards disarmed and cuffed. Marcus appeared through the kitchen entrance, Vincent and 2 security men flanking him, his face tight with barely controlled fury. You okay? He asked Lena, pulling her away from the chaos. I'm fine. Did you get everything? Every word, crystal clear. He's done. Agent Chen approached, holding an evidence bag with Lena's wire. That was either very brave or very stupid, Mrs. Brooks. I've been told there's not much difference. Lena's hand started shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Is it enough? Enough? You got him confessing to conspiracy to commit kidnapping, extortion, and making terroristic threats, all while he's already under indictment for racketeering. The prosecutors are going to love you. Chen actually smiled. And for the record, you've got steel nerves. Ever consider a career in law enforcement? I think I've had enough excitement for one lifetime. Moretti was being led away in handcuffs, still shouting threats and curses. But they were empty now, the rage of a man who'd lost everything and knew it. Marcus kept his arm around Lena, holding her steady as they watched their enemy removed from their lives. It's over, he said quietly. It's really over. Not quite. Lena looked up at him. We still have to figure out what normal looks like. They discovered what normal looked like over the following months. It looked like Emma and Daniel becoming inseparable, their bond forged in shared trauma and strengthened by genuine affection. It looked like Lena transitioning from Marcus's consultant to chief operating officer of his legitimate business empire, her talent for observation and strategy proving invaluable. It looked like Sunday dinners with extended family that now included Catherine and Vincent, chosen family bound by loyalty rather than blood. It looked like Marcus and Lena standing before a small gathering of friends and family on a summer afternoon exchanging vows that promised partnership in all things, forever. You saved my life, Marcus said during his vows, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. Not just in the warehouse, but every day since. You believed I could be better than my past. You showed me that redemption wasn't just possible, it was worth fighting for. You gave me a family I actually deserve. Lena's turn. You saw me when I was invisible. You trusted me when I was just a broke waitress with nothing to offer. You loved Emma like she was yours before we were even together. You showed me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to do what's right despite being terrified. Her voice caught. You gave me a future I'd stopped believing in. The kiss was witnessed by 2 7-year-olds who cheered, by Catherine, who dabbed at tears she'd deny later, by Vincent, who smiled his rare smile, and by friends who'd watched this unlikely love story unfold against all odds. The reception was held in Marcus's backyard, which Lena had transformed with flowers and lights, and all the touches of home that had been missing from his life. Emma and Daniel served as ring bearers, taking their duties with the utmost seriousness. Agent Chen even made an appearance, bringing congratulations, and the news that Moretti had just accepted a plea deal for 25 years. You're free, Chen told Marcus quietly. The investigation into your past activities is officially closed. As far as the federal government is concerned, you're exactly what you appear to be. A legitimate businessman who helped us take down a major criminal enterprise. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank your wife. She's got more courage than half my field agents. Chen smiled. And if she ever gets bored of the corporate world, she's got a standing job offer with the Bureau. As the celebration continued around them, Marcus found Lena standing by the garden, looking out at their assembled loved ones with something like wonder on her face. Regrets? He asked, echoing the question from months ago. Not even one. You? Only that I didn't chase you down sooner. Marcus wrapped his arms around her from behind. But then again, maybe we found each other exactly when we were supposed to, when we were both ready to be brave enough to build something new. Lena leaned back against him, watching Emma and Daniel play with other children, their laughter bright and uncomplicated. You know what the best part is? A year ago, I was drowning in debt, terrified for my daughter's life, invisible to everyone who mattered. Now look at us. Now you're married to a reformed crime boss with enemies who will probably resurface eventually, with more responsibility than you ever wanted, still dealing with Emma's medical needs. But I'm not drowning anymore. I'm not invisible. I'm not alone. Lena turned in his arms to face him. I'm home. That's what this is. Not the house, not the security, not even the financial stability. It's knowing that whatever comes next, we face it together. Together, Marcus agreed, kissing her softly. Though I'm hoping what comes next is extremely boring. Maybe some PTA meetings, school plays, teaching the kids to ride bikes. Don't forget the quarterly board meetings and strategic planning sessions. Those too, all the wonderfully boring responsibilities of normal life. But normal, they discovered over the following year, was its own kind of adventure. Emma's heart continued to strengthen, her artificial valve functioning perfectly, her prognosis excellent. Daniel thrived in school, his nightmares about the kidnapping fading as stability and love worked their healing. The businesses Marcus had built flourished under Lena's strategic guidance, expanding into new markets, creating jobs, becoming exactly the kind of empire a father could be proud to pass to his children. There were challenges, of course. Former associates who couldn't accept that Marcus had truly left the old life behind. Competitors who thought his transition to legitimate business made him weak. The occasional federal agent who wanted to make sure he was staying clean. But they faced each challenge as they'd promised, together. And then, on a snowy December evening 18 months after their wedding, Lena found herself standing in Marcus's study with news that would change everything again. I'm pregnant. Marcus dropped the file he'd been reading. You're what? Pregnant. About 8 weeks, according to the doctor. I wanted to be sure before I told you. Lena smiled at his shocked expression. Say something. You're pregnant? Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides, pulled her close. A baby. We're having a baby. Are you happy? Happy? Lena, I'm terrified and ecstatic and completely unprepared and absolutely thrilled. He kissed her, then pulled back. Emma and Daniel, do they know? Not yet. I wanted to tell you first. They told the children together that evening, watching their faces light up with excitement at the prospect of a new sibling. Emma immediately started planning how she'd teach the baby about dragons. Daniel began constructing elaborate castle modifications to accommodate a nursery. And Lena and Marcus stood back and watched their family expand, watched their impossible love story continue to unfold, watched everything they'd fought for become real and solid and permanent. On a spring afternoon 9 months later, they welcomed a daughter, Sophia Grace DeLuca, healthy and perfect and loved before she even drew her first breath. Emma and Daniel took turns holding her with exaggerated care, already fierce protectors of their baby sister. Lena, exhausted and happy, watched her husband cradle their newborn daughter with the same tenderness he'd shown holding Daniel in that warehouse, the same devotion he'd shown when Emma came home from her surgery. 3 children now, binding them together in ways that went beyond legal documents or spoken vows. What are you thinking? Marcus asked, catching her watching him. I'm thinking about that night. The rain, the money, the choice I made. Lena smiled. If someone had told me then where that choice would lead, I never would have believed them. Would you have made it anyway? Knowing everything that would come after, the danger, the fear, all of it? Lena looked at Emma reading to Daniel in the corner, at Sophia sleeping peacefully in her father's arms, at the life they'd built from courage and trust and the willingness to believe in second chances. Every single time, she said, I'd make that choice every single time. Because that was the truth Lena had learned in her journey from invisible waitress to beloved wife, from desperate mother to powerful partner, from woman running from poverty to woman running toward purpose. Sometimes the smallest choices carried the biggest consequences. Sometimes doing the right thing when no one was watching changed everything. Sometimes love found you in the most unexpected places and asked you to be braver than you knew you could be. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, choosing integrity over survival led you home. The story ended where it began, not with power or violence or the weight of impossible decisions, but with one simple truth. Lena Brooks had chased a stranger through the rain to return money she desperately needed, and that choice had saved 2 families, built an empire, and created a love that could weather any storm. She'd been invisible once, but she'd chosen to see what others missed, to act when others would have stayed silent, to be brave when being safe would have been easier. And that choice, that one moment of courage on a rainy Chicago night, had transformed her destiny forever. Years later, when Emma and Daniel and Sophia asked about how their family came to be, Lena would tell them this story. About a waitress who noticed things, about a father desperate to save his son, about $3,000 that became the foundation of everything they'd built. But most of all, she'd tell them about the moment she chose integrity over survival. The moment she decided that some things mattered more than money or safety or the easy path. The moment she chose to do the right thing, even though no one was watching. Because someone was watching. The universe was watching. Fate was watching. And sometimes, when you make choices based on who you want to be rather than what you need to survive, the universe responds by giving you everything you never knew to ask for. That was Lena's truth. That was her story. That was the lesson she'd carry forward and pass to her children. That courage matters. That integrity matters. That the choices we make when no one's looking define us more than anything we do in the spotlight. The rain had stopped long ago. The danger had passed. The struggles that once defined her life had transformed into challenges she could handle, supported by a partner who loved her, children who needed her, and a future bright with possibility. Lena Brooks had found her happy ending. Not through luck or fate or the kindness of strangers, but through her own courage, her own choices, her own unwavering commitment to being the kind of person who did the right thing even when it cost everything. And that made all the difference.